How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 4 of What If Deku Had Bond's Powers. And now, before we begin, I would just like to ask you all to please put your what if suggestions down in the comments section below. And now, let's begin. "You ready, Kirishima?" Izuku would say, facing off against Kirishima, as Kirishima would yell that he's ready as the match would then begin. Kirishima would rush towards Izuku, hardening using his quirk before slamming 2 punches right into the side of Izuku's head. However, this would do little to no damage against Izuku. As this would be happening, Izuku falling back as just a recoil from Kirishima's punches, he would then dodge a kick by Kirishima before punching Kirishima, shattering his hardened quirk after punching him right in the gut. As Kirishima would be sent flying upwards, Izuku would grab his head before slamming him back downwards. As the only reason Kirishima wasn't just super hurt or even dead was because of his hardening quirk. Right after this, Kirishima would tap out, saying that the match was over and that there was just little to no chance that he was going to be able to beat Izuku. We cut forward a month in time as Izuku had just been training with Kirishima, causing for Kirishima to jump forward a massive amount in strength, allowing for him to unlock new abilities, while also Izuku unlocking some new abilities as well, learning how to use Fox Hunt and Physical Hunt, just 2 of Bond's special abilities that he was able to use apart from just Snatch, which was one of the basic abilities Izuku knew from just the first day of having Bond's powers. So we see all of the students walking in to the UA school, where we then end up seeing everyone sitting around just on their desk, as Isawa would end up coming in for saying, "Alright, class, today we are going to be doing the UA Sports Festival. And so, let's begin." He would before telling all of them to go down to the bus bay and get onto the bus, as they would then travel to the Sports Festival Coliseum. As he then cut forward to see all of the students on the bus, where it would then slowly arrive before dropping them all off in the Class 1A waiting room. With them all there, they would then go into the changing room, changing before going back into the waiting room, where we then see Kirishima, Toga, Izuku, and Mina all sitting around a table. "I wish all of you luck," Izuku would say, looking on towards all of them, "and as do I, Izuku." So they would handshake each other, just showing a sign of brotherhood or rivalry, basically. So with that, we now see Mina and Toga just talking about who they think is going to win. Toga would say she thinks Izuku's going to win, while Mina would say she thinks Kirishima. As all of the sudden, however, all of them would be told to stand up, as over the intercom, finally a voice would then announce their names. "And now, Class 1A is now entering the UA Sports Festival," Midnight would say from a podium on at the middle of the Coliseum, as all of the sudden these slow creaky doors would slowly come to an opening, where we then see all of Class 1A walk out, all just showing their pride, as the crowd would then erupt into cheers, cheering them on. So after that, we now see Midnight quieting down the crowd. "Alright, quiet down. Why don't we have the first-year representative come up and give us a speech?" she would say before pointing on for the first-year representative, being Bakugo Katsuki, to come up onto the podium. As he would slowly walk up, he would then blatantly look on towards the entire crowd. "I'm gonna win," he would slowly mutter, as the entire crowd would then erupt into boos or cry from what they had just been doing with cheers. So as all the crowd would be booing, many of the other classes would end up joining it as well, just wondering, "How dare this Class 1A person think he's so much better than us? Let's show those Class 1A brats that the lower UA classes are not much far behind them." Class 1B would also be thinking of this mentality and mindset. So after that, Bakugo would walk back towards Class 1A, where we then see Mina up to him, slamming her fist down onto the top of his head. "What the hell are you thinking, Bakugo? You just got all of the other classes to target us," she would yell at him, however he wouldn't even care. "So, now that that's out of the way, let's begin with the first event," Midnight would proudly exclaim. "And that is going to be a race," she would say before helpers or just volunteers would come in, pushing all of the students into just a small hallway, where all of a sudden they would then hear President Mike yell, "Go!" Right as the words "go" would leave his mouth, all of a sudden these doors would open up as all of the students would end up rushing out. Izuku would end up being trampled, flattened like a pancake from all of the people just rushing in. However, Izuku really didn't care, only stepping up and just brushing all of the dirt off, as he would then just look straight ahead before sprinting off, easily passing through the entire crowd with ease, where he would then end up making it over towards the zero-pointer, as Izuku then looks straight on towards it, winding his fist back, closing his fingers into the palm of his hand, as he would then slam the fist right into the center of the zero-pointer's head with such high velocity and speed that the entire zero-pointer's head would just be blown completely off, being obliterated, vaporized by Izuku's punch, as he would then continue running, not caring about the rest of them, leaving them to Todoroki, Bakugo, Kirishima, and all of the other students that were much far behind him. Izuku would then make it towards the jumping section, and with his insane speed, he would easily be able to hop from rock to rock with ease. As with the minefield, he would do the same. However, every time he would step on a mine, it would just explode him further and further, causing him to step on mines willingly, as it wouldn't really do anything to him, as he would just be propelled right past the finish line, as the crowd would then erupt into cheers once again. "And Izuku is the winner!" President Mike would yell over the mic as you see Izuku standing in the middle of the sports festival, just raising up his fists in the air, signifying that he was the one that won. We cut back to see Bakugo and Todoroki looking on to see Izuku rushing past them after destroying the zero-pointer. Bakugo, not wanting to be left so far behind, would easily destroy the zero-pointer with a massive explosion, and Todoroki would follow suit, using his ice quirk to easily just capture the villain in ice. Not the villain, the robot. So with that, we then see them just jumping across islands, with Todoroki just creating an ice bridge and Bakugo flying over it with his explosions, as they would use the same strategy to end up crossing the minefield. However, before anything else could happen, we see Kirishima step on a mine, as he would end up being sent flying forward, as he would grab the head of Bakugo, propelling himself even more forward, crossing the finish line, getting second place. Todoroki seeing this, and Bakugo being sent back because of the acceleration and just how fast the momentum was of Kirishima. He would be sent flying backwards. As with that, we would then seeing Izuku walk up to Kirishima in the waiting room, congratulating him on second place. Bakugo would come stomping in after getting fourth place, yelling at Kirishima and Izuku how dare they pass him, getting first and second place, as he would then turn towards Todoroki, yelling dare he pass him as well, causing him to get fourth place, not even in the top 3 or a podium finish. How dare they defy him, Bakugo would be thinking, as Izuku would only just laugh. "Calm down, Bakugo," Izuku would say. "You're letting your anger get to you again." Bakugo would then apologize to Izuku before holding his head. This whole nice thing was still quite confusing towards Izuku. So with that, we'd then see all of the rest of the Class 1A students who had managed to pass the race or get a passing place end up walking into the waiting room, as after a 10-minute waiting period, they would end up going right back out onto the field. "Alright, now that waiting time is up, we may now begin the second event," Midnight would proudly exclaim. "And that event is going to be a cavalry battle," she would say. "So, the first top 3 people will have the most points. The people behind will have less. So there's going to be these headbands with amounts of points. There's going to be 4 teams having passing with the most points, so try to have the most points. The top headband going to first place has 10 million points, basically giving yourself an automatic victory. So, let's begin, she would end up saying, as Zook, seeing this, as he would up and nodding his head, agreeing with her, as he would then rush around looking for a team, gathering up Mina, Kirishima, and Toga. The friendship was going to last stronger throughout even the second event, as they weren't having to go up against each other until the 1v1 tournament. So, with that, we then end up seeing Izuku crack his knuckles before he would then smile. As the round would begin, all of the teams would turn towards Izuku to see him dangling the 10 million point headband above his head, as he would then wind his back, opening his jaws wide, eating the 10 million point headband in front of everyone. Everyone would look on in surprise and shock. Why would he do that? Many of them would think. As all of them now just being deterred by Izuku just from how weird he was and not having the promise of the 10 million point headband, they would then go after everyone else. And since Izuku not having the 10 million point headband, his entire team would just be able to lay around not really doing anything, while the 30 minutes would end up passing. And so, as the 30 minutes would pass, Izuku would see that his team wasn't on the leaderboard, where he would then end up walking up to Midnight and asking about it. Hey, how come my team's not on the leaderboard? Well, you destroyed the 10 million point headband, didn't you? That means you don't have any points. Oh, I didn't destroy it, Izuku would say, slamming his fist right into his stomach, completely destroying it before he would end up pulling out the headband. See? It's right here, still intact, Izuku would say. Although it had some holes in it because of Izuku's stomach acid, it really didn't digest at all. As Izuku would be dangling this, Midnight would only facepalm before pointing up to the board, where Onima's team would end up being moved out of the top 4, and Izuku's team would be moved in. What? How could this be? We were supposed to make it, and I was supposed to be the one winning this, to show those damn Class 1A kids who's boss, Emma would be saying. However, Kendo would only walk up to him, slamming her fist right to the top of his head, much like Mina had 2 Bakugo. When will you learn, she would say calmly at him, shaking her head just in frustration. We now see Izuku stretching, as he was told that he was going to be the first match up against Toga, his own teammate. Izuku is smiling, walking up onto the arena, as she would be the same. And now, Izuku versus Toga! The round may now begin! President Mike would yell as Midnight would flare her flag, showing that the match had begun, as the crowd would look on, all at the edge of their seats, wondering what was going to happen next. Izuku would rush towards Toga, punching her right across the face. I may have been living with you for quite a little bit now, Toga, but that doesn't mean I'll go easy on you. Also, just because you may be my girlfriend, that doesn't mean anything either, Izuku would say, punching her across the face again, not even letting her have a chance to speak. As she would be flailing around, her body would then slam up against the ground before she would then flip upwards. That's fine, Izuku. No worries, she would then say, opening her eyes once again, staring at Izuku with a devilish glare, rushing at him, slashing him with her hand, grabbing onto his neck. However, this would do nothing at all, as Izuku would only headbutt her, causing her to fall backwards. Gonna have to try harder than that if you wish to beat me, Izuku would say, punching her across the face once again. As your simple tactics aren't going to work on me, Izuku would say, smiling on towards her. As this would be happening, Izuku would end up seeing the crowd all cheering from just the excitement, and Izuku not wanting to torture his girlfriend anymore, as he would be waiting for her to rush him once again, as she would then rush on towards him, sprinting as fast as she could, slashing with her hand, going for a punch, punching him right in the gut, as Izuku would make it look like it hurt him, or you would end up coughing out some of the blood that he had saved in his mouth after puncturing his stomach entirely. As he would end up spitting it out, the entire crowd would look on just in shock. How strong was this girl's punch? Did she have some sort of strength quirk or something? Many of them now completely on the edge of their seats, almost falling off. They would all be staring on, wondering what was going to happen. What was going to happen next? Who was going to win? The anticipation was so high. However, Izuku would only smile, a bloody smile, his teeth stained red, as he would end up punching Toga right across the face with his right fist right at his left shoulder. He would end up slashing his right hand right across, as the butt end of his fist would end up hitting her right on the other side of her face, as she would end up falling down to the ground, completely unconscious, having been just knocked out by Izuku. The crowd would roar, as President Mike would then excitedly yell that Izuku has just beaten Toga in the first round, and Izuku will be moving on to the second round. As we see Izuku walk back to the waiting room, as Kirishima and Mina would then congratulate him, as we now see Izuku walking up to face off against Todoroki in the second round. Alright, Todoroki, I wish you luck, Izuku would say, cracking his fingers and stretching his neck. As the match would begin, Izuku would rush towards Todoroki, punching him right across the face. Todoroki would only look towards him, slamming his foot on the ground, causing an iceberg to go protruding right out of the ground, right towards Izuku, capturing him just in a layer of ice. As Izuku was in his ice prison, the entire ground would start to shake, as the ice would then shatter into tiny thousands of little ice cubes. As this would be happening, Izuku would rush towards Todoroki, gliding his hand on the ground, grabbing some of the ice, as he would then throw it at Todoroki as if he was mocking him. Todoroki, seeing this, would then look on towards Izuku before rushing towards him, punching him right across the face with flame fist. However, this seemed to do nothing at all, as the burn mark and outline of Todoroki's fist would easily heal, just disappearing. Izuku, now looking right on towards Todoroki once again, would headbutt him, much like he did towards Toga, headbutting Todoroki, who would then put both of his fists together, uppercutting him with double fists, as Todoroki's head would be sent flying back, as Izuku would then grab his neck, slamming him down into the ground, before he would start twirling around, still holding on to Todoroki. With Izuku gathering momentum, he would then chuck Todoroki out of the arena. However, using his ice quirk, he would use it to stop himself from hitting the grass, causing him to just be told that he was out of bounds. And since Todoroki saved himself, he would fall down the ice, gliding upon it, before creating just a ramp, causing himself to go flying on towards Izuku. As he would end up making it towards Izuku, he would punch him right across the face before punching him again the other way. However, this did little to no effect on him. As Izuku, in both of his fists together, he would then slam both of them to each side of Todoroki's face. Todoroki would fall to two knees. He would yell at himself not to lose like this, as his flame side would then erupt just like a volcano. As fire would start spreading all around the arena, Izuku would jump back, seeing this. "Ah, I see you finally decided to use your fire against me. You finally decided to wise up, didn't you, Todoroki?" Izuku would say, as Todoroki would only stare on towards Izuku, gliding along the ice right up towards Izuku, slashing his hand, causing a wave of fire to go barreling upwards. However, Izuku managed to completely dodge this completely. As Todoroki seeing this, he would end up sending an iceberg right where Izuku had dodged. However, Izuku would dodge this again, merely only dodging it by a tiny little centimeter. As Izuku seeing this, he would end up shattering the ice before grabbing more ice cubes, throwing them right at Todoroki, mocking him even more. This would cause Todoroki to get angrier and angrier before rushing over towards Izuku, slamming both of his feet onto the ground, as an iceberg would then be infused with fire, rushing on towards Izuku. As it would then capture Izuku, as it was far too big for him to dodge. As Izuku feeling this, it wasn't cold at all. It was blistering hot. However, it was just solid, just like ice. It had just the makeup and it was solid like ice. However, it felt and the temperature was just like fire. As Izuku's entire body would start burning, some of his skin even catching on fire, As Izuku feeling this, however, the regeneration would overpower the fire, as he would then slam out of it using his immense power to destroy the iceberg, as he would then now look over towards Todoroki, as Izuku would just think to himself, I'm gonna finish this. I've had enough fun with you, Zuko would say, smiling evilly on towards Todoroki. Todoroki, seeing this, would then see Zuko rush on towards him, punching him across the face so fast it would cause his entire momentum just to be sent flying the other way, slamming him into the concrete border, as many of just the fans watching from the stands would end up leaning over to look on at the injured and knocked out Todoroki, as President Mike would then exclaim, and Izuku was won in the second round against Shoto Todoroki due to a ring out and knockout victory. He will now be going to the semifinals, he would proudly exclaim, as we now see Mina walking up on towards the first round, as we see Mina was going to be going up head-to-head against Bakugo Katsuki. Mina would be staring head-on at him as the round would then begin, as Bakugo would rush on towards her using his explosions to propel himself forward, as with such high speeds he would then explode a massive explosion right in the face of Mina, as with this would then be sent flying backwards as it would land onto the ground, as Bakugo would then grab her face, not letting her react, slamming it down onto the ground, dragging her head on the ground. As she would scream out in pain, the crowd would look on in shock, wondering why was this person just torturing her? It's obvious that he's much stronger and better than her. Why doesn't he just knock her out with ease? He's just torturing her, causing her to feel more pain that she actually needs to feel. However, many of them just didn't understand why he was doing this. As with that, we then see Bakugo now holding her head once more, slam 3 explosions rapidly right to her stomach, as she would then fall down to the ground, landing on her wobbly feet. She would look on towards Bakugo. As her feet would start shaking once again, she would look on towards him, rushing over towards him, not wanting to just give up defeat and announce it so soon. Rushing towards him, she would then slam an acid fist right into the side of his cheek, causing Bakugo to get angrier, as his eyes would then burn an explosion orange as he would stare on towards her, as he would then end up slamming explosion into her chest, causing her to be sent flying upwards, where you then clap both of his fists together, slamming another huge explosion into her, causing her to be sent flying backwards, slamming her down into the ground and concrete beneath him, as Mina would get up, now on both of her knees, not being able to get up on 2 feet. President Mike about to call it, however Aizawa would end up stopping it. Wait, I think she still has a little left in her. I wouldn't call it just yet, at least for pride, that is, Aizawa would say, as President Mike would end up nodding his head. Okay, sure, I'll wait, would say, as we then see Mina get up, or slapping some acid down onto the ground, grabbing some of it like it was water. As Bakugo would get closer towards her, she would slam acid right into Bakugo's eyes. As Bakugo feeling this, he would yelp out in pain, holding onto his eyes, as Mina would then get up closer to him, slamming 2 acid fists right into his chest. As Bakugo's eyes would then open, giving off just a red hue, as they were just red from Bakugo rubbing them and the burning acid. As Bakugo would be looking on towards her, he would rush towards her, headbutting her, before punching an explosion right into her jaw, sending her flying upwards once again, where Bakugo, flying upwards, would then slam hundreds of tiny explosions right into her body, causing some of her bones to start cracking and breaking, while her skin would start to burn up from how hot Bakugo's explosions were being, as Bakugo would then wind his fist back, yelling out in full anger, saying that this was his final attack, slamming a massive explosion right into the chest of Mina, sending her flying down onto the ground. And see her fall down to the ground, slamming onto it, as she then just fall down, collapsing, not being able to get up at all. As Bakugo would then fall back down onto the mangled body of Mina, walking away, just exclaiming proudly of his victory. As President Mike and Aizawa would just look on in shock, Bakugo had used his complete full strength, showing that, yes, he was just giving some dignity to Mina, not wanting to go easy on her at all, but this most likely could have killed her, and it sure looks like it did. As Recovery Girl would rush out to Mina, having two volunteers come out, grabbing onto Mina, putting her onto a stretcher, so they would then rush off to her office. As we now cut forward to a fight head-on, where you end up seeing a purple-haired boy staring on at just a short person that looked unreasonably short. As all of a sudden the match would begin, the person would start to talk as the tiny person would end up answering. However, before anything could happen, all of a sudden this purple-haired boy would end up getting brainwashed himself before walking out of the arena. As we then now see Kirishima staring on, glaring towards Bakugo, pacing back and forth, as President Mike would then announce that this round was going to be Kirishima versus Bakugo Katsuki. And that this round is just basically the second round, and the winner of this will go on to the semifinals to face off against Izuku. As we see Izuku watching from the stands, as the round would begin, Kirishima, just a focus in his eyes, would rush over towards Bakugo, slamming his hardened fist into Bakugo's chest. So Bakugo would then cough out blood before slamming an explosion into Kirishima. So Kirishima would only glare on towards Bakugo, yelling that he's not going to get away with what he did. As Bakugo only looked towards him, "Oh, please, Kirishima. This is only a sports festival. It was just going 100% like Aizawa told us to do." As then Bakugo rushed towards Kirishima, slamming another explosion right into him. However, Kirishima would only look on towards Bakugo, not budging at all, even though he'd felt an immense pain. As Kirishima would grab the head of Bakugo, twisting him around, slamming him down into the concrete. As Bakugo would then get up, flying over towards Kirishima, sending an explosion into him. As he would then create a small circle with his hand, causing an explosion to go right through that circle. With this just impact, an armor-piercing impact would go right towards Kirishima. However, his armor, just core hardening, would hold strong, not breaking one bit, as Kirishima would then go on slamming his jagged hand into the face of Bakugo, causing blood to end up oozing out of some of the holes punctured by Kirishima. Bakugo, not having any of this, would only stare on towards Kirishima. "Oh, so you're gonna play that game, huh?" Kirishima would be confused but wouldn't care, pressing on towards Bakugo, slamming a fist right in it to Bakugo, as Bakugo would then sending an explosion on towards Kirishima. However, Kirishima wouldn't budge once again. His determination was far too strong for him to give up, so he would be rushing towards Bakugo once again, punching him repeatedly over and over and over again, as the pure hatred that had started to grow in Bakugo since the start of the match against Mina had fully started from a few tiny embers had exploded into a massive bonfire, as Kirishima would be repeatedly punching Bakugo, with this hatred fueling his every move. As this would continue on, Zuko would be watching this, as all of a sudden Kirishima would wind his hand back, punching Bakugo one final time, sending him flying upwards into the air. So Bakugo would use his explosions to go right back down into Kirishima. However, Kirishima would get onto one foot, using a move that Mina had taught him when they were training, kicking Bakugo right in the side of the head, causing him to be sent flying out of bounds, slamming into the wall, much like Todoroki had just by Izuku, as the limp, knocked out body of Bakugo would fall down to the ground. As Kirishima would then be awarded the victory and would be told he was going on to the semifinals against Izuku Midoriya. Or not Izuku Midoriya, just Izuku. As this would be happening, the semifinals would begin, as Izuku would be staring on towards Kirishima. As the match would begin, the match wouldn't really move, both of them just standing apart from each other. I'm sorry, Kirishima, about what happened to Mina, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna go any bit easy on you. That's fine, he would say, slamming his fists together, rushing over towards Izuku. However, Izuku would stare onto him, punching him right in the gut, shattering his heart and power instantly. As Kirishima, feeling this, and cough out, What the hell? He would say, walking backwards. Where was this power when we were training? You were far too weak to handle it, Kirishima. You most likely would have gotten killed if I did this on the first day. But now you've gotten quite a bit stronger, Zuko would say, flying right on towards Kirishima, slamming a punch right into his gut once again, sending him flying out of bounds, as Izuku would then be told he was going on to the final fight. As we now see Izuku go up to the final fight, standing across from a very short person. Hello, Izuku. I know you've received Bond's powers, so I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Meliodas. And that is where part 4 of What If Deku Had Bond's Powers comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy it, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as it really does help this channel out, and you can even be notified when the other parts of this series do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.